I hated this deafening sound of the changing neighborhood, my neighborhood. Every hour of every day, this non-stop drilling sound, this dirtiness in the air that made it hard to breathe. The dirty comments of the construction workers. Not that I wasn't used to that sort of behavior from men, but these were different. These were outsiders. They didn't have that right. Everything has changed here. All my favorite places are gone or about to be. Places that were my refuge ever since I was a child. We were supposed to be the dumps of the city, but now everyone here can barely pay their rent. Several buildings are being turned into hotels, and my childhood friends are being evicted. This may have been an awful place to live, but for us, this was home. I'm aware I didn't have the perfect childhood, but I was loved without ever really asking for it. Growing up with my grandmother wasn't easy, but she was all I had. Her in this little shelter some may call an apartment. It wasn't much, but for us, it was more than that. I still remember it like it was yesterday. I was just an 8-year-old girl riding my bike in the old small street in front of my building. Like almost everything else, the street doesn't exist anymore. Nowadays, it's nothing but a huge square to me. But that street was filled with memories. I remember going there with Maria, a girl who lived in the building with the green tiles right next to mine. We used to go there every day after school. My grandmother used to watch us from the windows at the bakery where she worked. We would ride our bikes for hours. When we were tired, we would lay on the ground and count the windows, all white like nowadays. One of the few things that didn't change around here. We counted them like they were clouds in the sky.
1, 2, 3, 4.
So many clouds. It was so easy to forget we were in the city. For brief moments, it would be like we were in an open country field, nothing but sky for miles. The sky had different colors, but my building had the color of the real sky, dark blue. That's why it was my favorite. It didn't lie like the others. Counting how many times did that white-colored window repeat itself was the only way we could distract ourselves from all that mess that surrounded us. I was only 8 years old, but even then, I knew all about the drugs and the sex rooted in our neighborhood. It used to be Maria that told me everything, since Grandma never shared the true nature of where we lived. She always tried to bury it under magical fairy tales, thinking we were naive enough to believe them. Not like Maria's parents. She used to tell me the stories that she had heard from them about our neighborhood. She was 3 years older than me and lived with her mom and stepfather. Things weren't easy for her as well. Later in life, I found out that her stepfather used to beat her and end his nights passed out drunk in some tavern near the street where we used to ride our bikes. Unfortunately, that was the story of so many other girls from this neighborhood. She and I used to go to the same school. I remember being so happy at that time, always so ignorant about life. We grew up together, my two little angels, my grandma used to call us. Funny to think how in just one day, everything changed. It was the beginning of autumn. I could smell it in the air. The wind was blowing, and I was only an 18-year-old girl standing outside my building, leaning on those cold blue tiles. There had been a robbery in the bakery where my grandmother used to work. She was closing up the shop, and right before she locked the outside door, a dark red color all splattered in the white wall of the bakery's building. Maybe if she had lived a little longer, this would have been different. I could have been different. From that day onwards, I had to pay the bills, but I didn't have the money. I couldn't finish school or find a job, so I had to become part of this neighborhood and be like them, like any other girl I grew up with. I had to run the streets. Every night, till this day, just waiting for someone while leaning on my building's wall, on those cold blue tiles. All I saw was blue. Those white windows were gone, and my childhood went away with them. Each night a different honk. Each night a different man. Each night a different smell. I was only doing that for a few months when I saw someone across the street with the same long dark brown hair as I had. I immediately knew who she was, so I screamed for her. But she just looked away. I became numb, with tears running down my face. I saw her many times after that, talking to the same man as I, but never talking to me. So I just kept leaning there, in those cold tiles of that sea of blue. 10 years had passed of roaming the streets. I thought it would be just another night, until I met him. I remember it perfectly. I was leaning on that damn dark blue wall. wearing nothing but a thin blue dress, separating my body from the soft breeze that flew across the square. My dress was merging with the wall and the deep, almost black sky. My lips, blood red like his tie, the only thing that brought color to that sea of blue. He came and offered me a cigarette, in a weak attempt of making me notice him. Little did he know that I had already seen him from miles away. I was nervous. He was smiling. His confidence was mesmerizing, something I wasn't used to. He leaned in and asked me,
"My angel, where do you live?"
I smiled and said, "Somewhere in the middle of all this blue." Suddenly it started to rain. I took his hand. I held it tight and we ran until we reached the door of my house. Until this day I cannot explain it. He was different. He was special. We lingered at the door for a few moments, but finally I invited him in. Our clothes were wet. He took off his coat and red tie. I offered him a drink. His choice of beverage was simple, a small glass of Porto wine. I couldn't understand him at all, what he wanted, but his smile was enough for me to keep falling in love. We talked for hours while sitting in my couch. I remember feeling ashamed of my house. In fact, I still am. These pink walls, filled with dark brown furniture all around it. An old kitchen with a broken tap that still to this day keeps dripping, one drop of water at a time. And between the noise of 2 drops of water, he finally puts down his glass and asks,
"What were you doing standing in the street?"
I didn't want to answer, but I had to. The only thing I knew. He understood what I meant, and what that meant for us. He didn't say anything. He just kissed me in my red lips. We slept together that night. That was the first time I made love. Real love. But when I woke up, he wasn't there. Only his red tie. For moments, I forgot where I was. He at least gave me that hope of being more than anyone else from this neighborhood. But I was not. Every inch of me was that building. Those windows and that street filled with hookers and drug addicts imprinted in it. I grew up with this neighborhood, and it grew up with me, so I think it is fair to say it is a part of me as much as I am a part of it. But through the years it changed, 5 years ago especially. Our building may still have a pattern of white windows like clouds. Funny how I can see them again today. And the street where I used to ride my bike is now a square where a bicycle store is located right next to my building. My walls aren't blue anymore. They now fill the neighborhood with different colors instead of that sincere dark blue. And the place where I met him, right in the middle of the square, it lies a bright red bench. The same color as his tie that night. The same color of the lips he kissed that night. I didn't have the perfect life. Never really was the target of much love. And I only asked for it once. Everything has changed here. Today I couldn't afford to eat. This may have been an awful place to live back then, but for us, it was home. The neighborhood is dead, and I went with it.